Be proud when you're different. Some children don't grow up because they're accepted. They grow because they've gotten used to being misunderstood. I was one of them. My childhood wasn't filled with laughter, and it wasn't filled with tears either. It was just a long, quiet journey, learning to stand in a room and slowly accept that I was different, and that didn't mean I was wrong. When my family left the Dominican Republic and came to the US, we didn't bring much, but I carried with me a constant feeling I didn't belong. Not just in a new country, in the classroom, on the playground, in how I pronounced things, in how I stayed silent while others laughed. I never knew that being different could be something to be proud of. All I knew was, every time I spoke my truth, people went quiet. Every time I walked into a room, someone stared. Every time I touched a book, someone smirked. And slowly, I began to wonder, maybe it really was me. If you're a parent raising a child in this delicate age, please remember this. The difference your child carries may be exactly what the world needs, even if the world doesn't understand it yet. Don't silence it because you're afraid. Don't shape your child into a mirror of yourself just because you once feared being different. I grew up with questions no one answered and dreams no one approved of. But it was those very things that helped me become the deepest version of myself. And then, one day, I met someone just as quiet as I was. Someone who didn't ask me to change. They simply looked at me and didn't look away. Arriving where no one knows your name, I stepped into America on a morning colder than anything I'd ever felt in Dominica. The air smelled different. The way people looked at each other was different. Even the sound of car horns sharper, faster, as if the whole city was rushing forward, and I was the only one moving backward. We lived in a temporary apartment on the outskirts of Ohio. My parents, my little sister, Anna leapt on a thin mattress pushed against a fogged-up window. During those first few days, I barely spoke. Not because I was shy, but because no one said my name right. Victor, when said through the unfamiliar mouth of an American teacher, sounded like someone else's name, not mine. In my first classroom here, I understood nothing. I sat quietly, head down, and when the teacher asked me a question, the class laughed either at my silence or the way my answer twisted the language into something funny. I held my pen but didn't write. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't think anyone wanted to read what I might say. In Dominica, I had been a boy who wrote things down. Here I was the boy who doesn't speak, the boy who doesn't understand, the boy from somewhere hot and poor. Strangely, I wasn't angry, just sad. Sad in the way that a name repeated wrongly enough times starts to lose its shape. Every time someone called Victor, I turned my head. Not because I recognized myself, but because I needed to check whether I still existed in this world. If you're a parent bringing your child into a new environment, a new school, city, or even an after-school class, please remember, a name is the first home we're ever given. When a child's name is mispronounced long enough, they begin to believe something about them must be broken. I never blamed those who couldn't say my name right. I just wished someone just one shad asked, "How would you like to be called?" One small question, but it could have made a boy stand a little taller. Seen as the stranger in the room, I can't remember how many times I was looked at like I'd fallen from another planet. But I do remember this. That feeling never went away, it just changed shape. At first, it was curiosity. then caution, and eventually, silent accusation. My skin was darker. My English was slower. My writing uncertain, erased and rewritten. Every time I walked into class, the chairs around me seemed to form an invisible wall. No one meant to, but no one came closer. When we had group work, I was always placed in the leftover group, where the other kids didn't quite know what to say either. We were silences stacked together, forming one big quiet zone in a classroom full of sound. I used to think, if I were smarter, spoke better, acted more like them, maybe everything would be easier. But slowly, I began to see it differently. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It was that I was trying to become something I didn't believe in. If you're a parent, you may have told your child, just try to fit in, and people will accept you. But maybe what they really need to hear is, if you feel different, it's okay. What matters is that you don't lose the part of you that makes you unique. Some children grow up always feeling like they don't belong anywhere. I know that feeling. And I also know, if that feeling isn't buried, if it's understood, it can become the most powerful force for building something the world has never seen. I wasn't an alien. I was just a boy trying to understand why the world worked the way it did. And maybe all I really needed then was one adult to say, that kid's not strange. He's just seeing through a different lens. The only thing I brought with me. When we left Dominica, we weren't allowed to bring much. One small suitcase for the whole family, a few folded, worn clothes, some cash hidden in my mother's bra, a tin box with my parents' wedding photo, some old letters, and one small thing no one noticed, a blank notebook. It was the only thing that was mine. No one touched it. No one asked about it, but I kept it like treasure. I don't remember why I chose to bring that notebook. All I know is at 12, leaving behind what I called home. I wanted something to write in, as if writing could help me hold on to what I was losing. I didn't write or draw in it at first, just flipped the pages, imagining I was recording something for someone in the future. Not my parents, not my teachers, but for Meaton, 20 years from now, a version of Victor who was clearer, stronger, braver, someone who might one day come back and read the shaky words of a boy who had just landed in a new world. I believed that if I could keep that notebook long enough, no matter what changed around me, I'd still have one piece of my original self. At that age, adults often think children don't have anything of value. No property, no opinions, no identity. But sometimes the smallest thing, something so small it goes unnoticed, is the very thing keeping a child's spirit intact. If you're a parent and you're moving homes, changing schools, or asking your child to adjust to a new life, please ask them, is there something you want to bring just for you? It might be a scrap of paper, a faded stuffed animal, a cheap box of crayons. But to your child, it's the map back to who they are in a world that suddenly doesn't make sense. I've never been good at keeping things, but that notebook, I still have it. Not because it's beautiful, but because it reminds me, when no one understands you, you can still write to the one person who will your future self. Different doesn't mean wrong. It took me years to learn this, not in a sudden moment of awakening, but through every look that told me I didn't quite fit. At school, I didn't raise my hand, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I didn't want the entire room to turn and stare. I didn't enjoy the subjects everyone else loved. I didn't laugh at the same jokes. I didn't run just to win, because proving myself better than someone else felt pointless. I used to think something was wrong with me. Until one day, I read a quote printed on the back of an old book, tucked on the bottom shelf of the school library. To be nobody but yourself in a world that is doing its best to make you somebody else is the greatest battle you'll ever fight. E. Cummings. I didn't understand it fully back then, but something in me exhaled, as if someone far away was whispering, "You're not wrong, you're just walking a different path." I began to notice the people who changed the world were never the ones applauded early on. Einstein was once labeled slow. Temple Grandin, an autistic woman, revolutionized humane livestock handling. Those labeled weird were often just ahead of their time. And I started to believe being different isn't a system error. It's a language no one has yet taken the time to learn. If you're raising a child who feels different, don't just try to fix them. Try learning their language. Let them guide you into the inner world they're quietly protecting. Because sometimes, what your child needs most isn't advice. It's an unjudging gaze, a quiet nod, and a simple phrase. "I don't fully understand, but I'm here." The day I stopped blaming myself for not being like everyone else was the day I started breathing easier. My first lesson didn't come from confidence. It came from a quiet truth. Maybe I don't need to become someone else to be accepted. Maybe being different doesn't mean being wrong. The books no one wanted. I found the library one Friday afternoon after school. It was tucked at the end of a hallway behind the older classrooms, the kind of place most kids didn't bother with. No one was there. No laughter. No voices. Just peeling wooden shelves, flickering lights, and the smell of old paper. I liked that smell. It helped me breathe. No one judged you when you sat among books. No one asked, "Why don't you have friends? Why are you so quiet?" Or, "Why are you so weird?" At first, I didn't pick the bright, popular books. I reached for the ones everyone ignored. Bent covers, cracked spines, missing pages. Books no one borrowed. Books no one remembered were there. I opened them like doors into forgotten worlds and stayed. One day, I was reading a book about planets. Each one rotates in its own unique way. I paused at a handwritten note in the margin. Jupiter doesn't need to orbit like Earth. It's still Jupiter. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because I saw myself in that line. I didn't orbit around cliques, games, or contests, but I was still spinning, just on a different path. The old books didn't tell me, "You're okay." They simply existed so I could come to my own quiet truth. Even if no one picks you first, you're still worth reading. Even if your pages are bent or missing, you still have a story to tell. If you're a parent, don't push your child to read only the right books just because everyone else is. Let them find the books that make them feel seen. Because sometimes, a lonely child doesn't need more skills. They just need a world where they don't have to ask permission to exist. I loved the books no one wanted, because I used to be one of them. What you love can save you. I never believed that a book, a notebook, or an afternoon alone could save someone. but they saved me. Not in the dramatic way movies show. There was no spotlight, no hero reaching out a hand saying, "You'll be okay." There was nothing, just moments of silence where I could simply be without asking permission. I loved writing. I loved sitting alone, scribbling down scattered thoughts, unfinished images, imaginary conversations. I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't good at talking, but I was good at one thing: feeling. And when no one wanted to listen, I wrote to hear myself. Slowly, I began to realize what you love doesn't have to make you better to be worth doing. It just has to be true to you. It just has to keep you intact. I once read about Frida Kahlo, a painter who lived in pain but painted through all of it. About Beethoven, who lost his hearing yet kept composing in silence. About Maya Angelou, who went mute from trauma and later wrote words that reached millions. And I understood. People aren't saved because they're strong. They're saved because they hold on to something that makes them feel alive. If you're a parent, please don't take away what your child loves just because it doesn't seem useful. Don't rush to remove the guitar, the sketchbook, the quiet corner where they retreat, just because you think they need to socialize. They should be more realistic. They have to fit in, because sometimes that useless thing is the only thread keeping them whole. I didn't break because I still had writing, because I still had books, because I held on to what I loved, even when no one else saw its value. Meeting the first person who saw me. I met Mr. Jack on a very quiet afternoon, a day that felt like any other in my silent little life. There was no sign it would matter, no music, no special lighting, just a wooden chair, a dusty corner, and an old man with silver hair sitting behind the librarian's desk. I walked into the library like I always did. I thought I was alone, but someone was there. A man who didn't ask why I had come. He didn't question me. He didn't even greet me with the usual adult tone of suspicion or control. He simply looked at me quietly, intently, as if waiting to see who I was before deciding what to say. I froze, bracing myself, waiting for the frown. The "what do you need?" Or worse, "we're closing soon." But he didn't say any of those things. He just nodded, then returned to his half-read book. That alone was enough to make me feel like I wasn't being pushed out of the room. That week, I returned to the library every day. He still didn't pry, just observed, and sometimes asked one simple question: "What did you read today?" Not, "Why this book?" Not, "Do you understand it?" Just a simple question, as if what I read mattered. For the first time, I didn't feel like the strange kid in the room. I felt seen. There was something about the way Mr. Jack looked at me, not with the intention to fix. He didn't try to change me. He didn't try to connect. He just quietly did what no adult had done for me before. He let me exist as I was. If you're a parent, please remember, you don't have to understand your child fully. Your child isn't asking for perfect understanding. Sometimes, all they need is someone who won't try to explain them away. Someone willing to be still and let them be. Mr. Jack didn't change my life with advice. He didn't give me a lesson. He simply gave me something else. A place in the world I thought had no room for me. Being understood starts from within. For a long time, I lived with the heavy feeling of being misunderstood. And perhaps what made it feel so crushing was not that no one understood me, but that I kept waiting for someone else to explain who I was. I wanted to be called by my real name. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted someone to say, "I know you're not like the others, and that's okay." But over the years, I began to see no one can truly understand you if you're afraid to see yourself. It was in those quiet afternoons at the library, when Mr. Jack didn't ask questions, didn't try to fix anything, that I slowly started facing me. I stopped writing for someone to read. I wrote to better hear my own voice. I stopped waiting for permission. I gave it to myself. To exist in full, with all my contradictions and quiet worth. I learned that being understood doesn't begin with others. It begins within. And once you become quiet enough to listen to yourself, maybe the world won't understand you immediately, but the loneliness changes. You stop begging for recognition, because what you've found is something deeper than approval: self-acceptance. If you're a parent, remember this: your child doesn't need you to decode them. They just need someone who won't pull away when they don't make perfect sense. Someone willing to sit beside them while they're still learning their own voice. And sometimes, that patience is the greatest gift you can give. I began to understand myself, and only then did others begin to understand me. Not belonging was my first taste of freedom. I used to think not belonging was a punishment, a quiet rejection from the world, a sentence handed down to those who just didn't fit. But then, I began to see it differently. Not belonging meant I wasn't bound. I didn't have to pretend to like what I didn't. I didn't have to squeeze into shapes I never chose. I could walk off the beaten path. I could dream without needing anyone to approve of the dream. I remember one day, Mr. Jack said, "When you don't belong anywhere, you get the rare chance to choose where you truly want to belong." And in that moment, I understood. Feeling lost wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The place where you start drawing your own map. The place where you name what matters to you. The place where you stop waiting to be invited and begin birthing yourself all over again. I stopped demanding the world to open its doors. I opened them myself. And sometimes, I even built new rooms for others who felt the same way I once did. If you're raising a child who doesn't quite fit the mold, don't worry if they haven't adjusted yet. Listen deeply, because maybe your child isn't lost. They're just carving out a path no one's walked before. I used to belong nowhere, and because of that, I learned how to belong to myself. When a boy steps into the light, I don't remember the exact day or month, only that it was the first time I walked out of the library, and the sunlight didn't feel harsh anymore. Nothing outside had changed. Only me, seeing things through different eyes. I no longer feared the stares of strangers. I no longer flinched at the question, "Why are you so different?" I just smiled, because finally, I could answer silently, because I'm not trying to be like anyone else. I was still the quiet kid, still wrote more than I spoke, still loved things no one noticed. But for the first time, I walked without lowering my head. I began to believe being different isn't a crack. It's the place where the light gets in. And that light, though faint, was enough to show me a glimpse of the path ahead. I had a long way to go. I'd stumble, get lost, and question myself many more times. But I would never walk blindly again. I had met the first person who saw me. I had learned to listen to myself. And I had decided I would no longer ask for permission to be who I am. In the next story, you'll join me on a new path. When the world starts tempting me with louder offers, when fragile self-worth is tested by spotlight, approval, and the high price of being noticed, and you'll see that staying true to yourself under bright lights can be far harder than when you were just the quiet one in the corner.
Hello everyone, I'm Lily, the youngest daughter of Victor Dominic. My father shared these stories, not to be remembered, but to remind us. Everyone deserves a new beginning, even the broken ones. Some names and places have been changed for privacy, but Free Your Soul is real, and it's the most precious legacy he left us. Today, I'm sharing it with you, hoping it reaches someone who needs a quiet, gentle whisper. Thank you for listening with your heart. I'll see you in the next stories.